Hello, and welcome to Community Voices, where we talk to Humboldt County's movers and shakers. Today's guest, Lauren Correll, Director of Operations, ERVC, NorCan. And now here's your host, Paul Bressoud.
Hello, and welcome to Access Humboldt's Community Voices. I'm your host, Paul Bressoud. Today, our guest is Lauren Correll, the Director of Operations for the ERVC. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's great. It's great to have you. The first thing I always ask people is, to explain their job before we get into the meat of the interview, so to speak. So what do you do down there at the ERVC as the Director of Operations?
Okay, so we run and operate the Gene Lucas Community Center and the campus in Fortuna. So I make sure everything runs smoothly. So we have programs, the building, which is we're on like a 26-acre campus, the outside trails, our community partnerships, and making sure everything is nice and good.
We've had you on before to talk about the Gene Lucas Center. How's it going down there?
It's been actually really wonderful. So this year we have opened up tremendously. Unfortunately, we had our grand opening a couple weeks before the COVID pandemic hit. We had to shut down, but now we are opening. We're open for rentals. We have our tenants in there. We have over 20 community partners in there. And two really strong programs going right now.
So it's being used, is it?
Absolutely. It's full all day.
Fantastic. Well, we're here today to talk about NorCan, the Northern California Association of Nonprofits. Can you tell us a little bit about what NorCan is and does?
Yes. So NorCan, like you said, it's the nonprofit association. So basically it's to support nonprofits in our community to make them stronger. So that's through connection, through trainings, and through providing them with resources.
So let's go through those. Talk to me about connections. Who are you connecting nonprofits to?
So really with NorCan, it's to connect nonprofits with each other. So we have an exceptionally large amount of nonprofits here in Humboldt County, and they fill in the gaps for services that probably wouldn't be otherwise available to people. So they overlap tremendously, and so being able to connect with one another is only going to strengthen the services that are provided to the public.
Can I ask an example of how a nonprofit connects to a nonprofit?
So here's an example. So I'll just use some of our people that we currently work with. So in our building, we work with what I call community partners. So we have English Express. They use the facility at no cost, and they can come in and provide their services to people. Let's see, Humboldt Senior Resource Center is also on our campus, and they provide their meal program out of our facility, and we also give them an in-kind donation so they can use the kitchen and stuff. So connections like that where the need is being met, and it's a collaborative thing as opposed to trying to do everything yourself.
What about groups that, say, aren't using a facility, a group to another group?
Let's see, and Ink People is a good one. They utilize, they do a lot of different projects with each other and collaborate. I'm trying to think. They have, a program called Trajectory, and they do certain things, and they work with other organizations to provide services. I know that Trajectory has provided art. I'm not a big art person, but when you put together an art show, I know that they have services for that. So say you have a nonprofit who wants to have an art show but doesn't have that level of understanding, they have the people who have it. And so they can get some funding to provide that. So collaborating with each other and providing services and expertise where your organization might have it, somebody else might.
Is it its own special sort of job description, working for nonprofits? And what are the kind of trainings that you're providing?
So, anybody who's been in the nonprofit world, understands that sometimes you have to work on a shoestring budget, and it's different from a for-profit world. So the trainings that were previously offered in NorCan really varied, but a lot of the ones that we're looking at, we did a survey to the nonprofit to world, and the feedback that we got was grant writing was a big one. So we're going to start off with grant writing actually in June, and do a series of grant writing just to talk to people about beginners. Are you ready? Do you even know what a grant is? And then all the way up to like those grant gurus who do federal grants that are a whole nother beast. So yeah, nonprofit world, it's different than a for-profit world. And
where would the grant writers, if not writing for federal grants, where would they be writing to obtain grants?
So nonprofits, there's private foundations who give grants, there's state grants, there's, individual donors, that's not necessarily grant, but that's the type of development. Those are the main ones, the three main ones.
So are there other employment opportunities inside of the nonprofit world?
Oh yeah, there's a myriad. To be a Jack or Jill of all trades is always a good thing in a nonprofit, because usually you're playing many different parts. But yeah, there's anything that a for-profit business has, usually a nonprofit has. So nonprofits are really just their organizations that are designed for a charitable purpose, and whatever that purpose is. It could be healthcare, it could be for the arts, it could be running a community center, it could be conservation. It could be anything. So, yeah, there's a myriad of jobs.
Now you've got me. I'm heading on this tangent.
Okay.
How many nonprofits are there in and around Humboldt County or the state or whatever?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
You knew that?
I knew that, and I did not figure it out. But I know that the proportion, here in Humboldt County is a lot higher than anywhere else. And I'm not sure of the reasoning behind that, but I do feel like it's in part to our rural area and the services that need to be provided.
Or maybe the history. You mentioned earlier that NorCan had spent 20 years at the Humboldt Area Foundation, yet is transitioning to your organization. Can you tell us about that transition?
Yes. So NorCan was housed up at Humboldt Area Foundation for, like I said, over 20 years. And then a couple years ago, it was just in transition that it needed to find a new home. So a group of nonprofit leaders, consultants, kind of expertise in that area, we didn't want to see it go away. So we thought, well, where's it going to go and how's that going to look? So with our community center and with the staff that we had, we thought, well, let's just bring it over here. Let's just bring it over here for now. And so with a generous grant from Humboldt Area Foundation, which helped us aid in the transition and operations for a year, we're trying it out. So it's been really successful thus far. And we have other things like in-person stuff as well. We have mixers. It's where nonprofits can come and collaborate with another. It's kind of like a Chamber of Commerce mixer. I don't know if people have been to those, but it's basically for the nonprofit world.
Are they more fun?
Yes, they're more fun. They're more, we have a limited budget, right, as all nonprofits, so we have to make it exciting and want people to be there. But yes, no, it's lots of fun. And the nonprofit world is once you start to move around, and it's like any other kind of world where you start to know people and get to know people, and everybody has their place of expertise.
I love this description of the nonprofit world. All this connecting going on, all this,
Yes.
these mixers, all these things going on.
Yeah.
How did the pandemic, affect the nonprofit world or NorCan in general?
So that was the big thing. So NorCan had a lot of the trainings were in person. a lot of the stuff that was happening was in person. And obviously, you know, when that was no longer happening. And then, you know, especially oriented organizations, you know, person to person, all that stuff had to be rethought about and redone. You know, I know at least on our end, you know, we had, for our programs, we have a First Five program, our playgroup leader, like, she did drive-throughs, you know, handing out stuff. So I think it got people to thinking more creatively, like, how can we provide services, how can we still do what we're doing, but still be able to, you know, keep everybody safe. So I think it made people more creative. I think it opened up new doors. Zoom's a big one, right? People don't feel like necessarily they have to meet in person anymore.
I'm glad that there's no Zoom in this job anymore.
Yeah.
I think we first did our show together on Zoom.
Yes, and my cat made his lovely appearance.
There you go. There were lots of animals that came in through them. So now organizations are able to meet again.
Yes.
Just a follow-up to end on the pandemic thought. Were there nonprofits that went away during the pandemic like other businesses did?
You know, I'm not sure. I haven't heard of any that went away. I definitely know that some of them change how they service certain things and provide certain things. But I don't know of any nonprofits in our local area that have actually went away because of it.
You mentioned that you get the grant for 2023. Mm-hmm. So now NorCan has got a new home.
Yes.
And they've got a grant, and it's for 2023. Is this a make or break year for NorCan?
You know, we have a lot of buy-in from nonprofit organizations who want to make sure NorCan stays around. So we're already talking about, like, okay, how do we do the funding for 2024? We have a group of really dynamic individuals with the reorganizing group that they want to make sure that this continues on for as long as it needs to.
Is that the lay of the land in the nonprofit world, is finding the funding for the next year?
Oh, always.
And that's why your grant writing classes are the most popular?
Yes.
Are you constantly training grant writers?
I personally am not, but we do have expertise, you know, people who have their expertise. And yeah, it's always, people are always looking for grant writing.
Do those people go work for the organization, or do you just have, you know, like the people in research or something, the people in the grant writing department at the ERVC?
Well, you know, I'm the grant writer at the ERV at my organization. You know, and it really depends. I mean, some people, that is all that they do. It depends on how big your organization is, right? You could be a volunteer grant writer. You could be a grant writer and do a myriad of other things. You could be at a really large organization and just be the grant writer or the development person. I mean, it really depends.
How much of your time is spent writing grants?
It depends on what is out there.
Well, I mean, give me a ballpark.
So right now I'm writing a state grant, which is taking up a large portion of my time. But the other grants, like private foundation grants, they're not as intricate, so they take a little bit. But it just depends on where the funding's coming from. And
I ask that because does NorCan actually do grant writing for people? Is that one of the services?
No,
they don't.
No,
they'll teach you how.
No. They'll offer you training to teach you how to do it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's broaden it out a bit. NorCan is working in Humboldt County. Is NorCan working beyond Humboldt County to connect nonprofits?
So our focus is Humboldt County, but the outlying areas like Del Norte and Trinity, if people need resources, then we're certainly not going to turn anybody away. So if somebody calls from, I don't know, up in Del Norte, we're not going to say like, oh, we're not going to talk to you because you're not here in Humboldt County. No, not at all. I mean, people need resources, they need resources. But our area is a rural area and it's very specific. You know, there's different opportunities and different resources, so.
Do you know of other organizations like this that you may model or you may talk to as far as, seeing what the situations that they have to deal with and asking how they run their programs? I mean, is it the nonprofit world, that beautiful image you've given me of the nonprofit world, is there a connection along that level?
Oh, yeah. So there's Cal Nonprofits, which is it's a huge organization that provides resources for the nonprofit world. It's for all of California. It's a great resource. One of our reorganizing committee members, she has a good relationship with the ED of them. And so absolutely what they're doing on a state level, we can take and utilize, on a smaller level for us. And so, yeah, there's nonprofit associations. Well, there might be different names, but they're all over. They're all over.
And I would assume funding comes from outside the county sometimes too. I mean, you can apply for state grants, or you can apply
Absolutely.
for federal grants.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a whole nother beast, though.
What do you mean it's a whole nother beast?
There's a lot of hoops and a lot of information that you have
for the federal as opposed to the state?
Yes.
So if I go to the grant writing training, I'm going to learn to ask private foundations and local grants, but the advanced class is going to be for the federal level? So we'll
have our very first kickoff one is for beginner. It's basically, what is a grant, and am I ready for a grant? And so it's to talk about all those little things that you need to know, and then you move forward to what's my compelling story and how to get funding.
Before we go to the compelling story,
yes.
Am I ready for
Yes.
the grant? What does that mean? Is the organization ready? Am
Yep.
I ready to write one?
Yep.
Well,
All
how
of the
does an
above.
organization become ready for a grant?
So you do have to, you got to make sure that you are, that you qualify for the grant, first of all. So there is funding. I mean, there's everybody who is giving away grant funding also you have to meet certain qualifications. So whatever they are, it just depends on who
Give me some qualification criteria
So
examples.
usually for all of grants, you have to be a charitable organization. So the most common one is a 501c3, which basically the federal government has told you that you are tax exempt. And so you have to have that, or you have to be fiscally sponsored by one. So you have to make sure that you meet, and then there's other things. Maybe they only serve a certain location. Maybe they only give grants in the Bay Area, or maybe they only give grants in a certain area. Like maybe they only give grants in healthcare, but you are an art organization. So you just have to make sure that you meet the criteria and that you're ready. And can you implement the program? Can you?
Well, that would be another question I would have. Are there, okay, now let's say we get the money. Are there benchmarks that have to be met in order to show that you were not just deserving of your grant, but you implemented the grant correctly?
Absolutely, yes, and that all depends on where you get your funding from and what their requirements are. So sometimes, you get a grant and they give you the money, and then they say at the end of the year or the end of the program, I want you to write a report, and that's all you have to do. But if you have like a state or a federal grant, which is much more in detail, and maybe you have to give them quarterly financials along with reports and different things like that. So it all depends on what you're getting yourself into. So
is this all part of the training from NorCan, not just to write the grants, but to implement them and to go ahead and show that the grant is being used correctly?
Yes, so absolutely. So after we finish our first kind of kickoff trainings, we will have additional trainings that will absolutely talk about all of this stuff that you once you are awarded a grant, what documentation and what things you have to do afterwards.
So it truly is a teaching support system for nonprofits. I mean, to run a nonprofit, because I would imagine nonprofits come from ideas, right? And people trying to provide services, but how to actually pull it together would be the challenge. Let me ask you this. You're down in the Eel River Valley now, has that broadened the number of nonprofits that are applying to NorCan for services?
So we don't have anybody applying. They just come to us and ask us for resources. So we have a listserv where they can put in their information and it gets sent out through like our over 2,000 email listserv. So we're connecting people. But I really feel like in Fortuna, there's a lot of services in the Eureka Arcata area, and so being down in Fortuna, it can help move those services to the Eel River Valley and then also to southern Humboldt too. So,
Do you think that's, this might be an obvious answer. NorCan existed for 20 years up in the Arcata Eureka area. Do you think that that's why they had the advantage of, say, the history that allowed them to service more folks up there?
Absolutely. We live in this rural area, and it's half an hour to drive to the next town. If you're up in Arcata and you want to talk with an organization down in Soham, that's like an hour, 2 hours, depending on where they're at. So, absolutely, it has something to do with how far. But I also feel that because of the pandemic, there's more people available on Zoom. There's more online resources. So we're trying to tap into all those different pieces to see how best to serve.
Your Northern Humboldt, Southern Humboldt example just then, can they use the Eel River Valley Community Center as a place to meet?
Yeah, absolutely. They can call us. They can look on our website. Absolutely.
And that's happening?
Yes.
Where groups are getting together like that?
Yep.
That's fantastic. That's exactly what you want.
Yes.
That's what you were hoping for, right?
Yes, we were hoping to be a hub where it was close enough to Southern Humboldt, close enough to Northern Humboldt, and to be smack dab in the middle. So,
and you see NorCan continuing after 2023 because people are, enthusiastic about the services.
There's a need for it. Yes, absolutely. Nonprofits need as many resources as they can possibly get.
And then if I'm, stating the obvious as we go down, will NorCan need to write a grant itself for its existence to continue?
Probably, yes.
I'm just trying to understand the world in which you live.
Yes.
But it's seen as an essential service.
And like I said, we have really supportive members of that reorganizing committee who are committed. So, the more outward we go and the more people who utilize our services, the more visible we become. So.
And this sounds to me like this has been a fairly smooth transition.
Yes, actually it has. I have an amazing staff who just worked with Humboldt Area Foundation and it was like seamless. So I'm very grateful.
So it wasn't kind of a split, it just was an organic.
Organic, that I believe that they were going in a strategically different direction, and they really helped us aid in whatever we needed to do in order for it to just flow very smoothly.
And then just the existence of your new facility allows for more services for the county.
Yes. And so we're hoping, to have a conference on a large scale, in 2024 for NorCan. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Fantastic. Well, that just sounds great. It sounds very successful. It sounds like it's working exactly as it should, which, not everything always sounds like that. So
adapt and adjust. That's
there
the
you
nonprofit
go.
world.
I'd like to thank Lauren Correll for her time today, for being here in person this time. It was great, and keep up the good work down there. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Community Voices.
Thanks for joining us on Community Voices. If you represent a nonprofit that is interested in being a guest on Community Voices, email info@accesshumboldt.net. Access Humboldt, local voices through community media.